The Cost of Captivity. Meeting incarcerated humans' biophilic needs. New York City is closing Rikers Island, and the city rejoices at the prospect of closing the toxic landfill housing one of America's largest jail complexes, finally ending the notorious Gladiator School, known for its culture of violence and fear. This project highlights how environmental neglect and social abuse are intrinsically linked. Lack of greenery and connection to nature is traumatic and a critical point of systemic racism in America. Environmental and social failures have rippling effects throughout society for generations. To combat this, we need to foster our environment while ensuring every person has access to a personal connection with nature. The city's plan is to build 4 new jails across the different boroughs. We need to ensure that future facilities housing vulnerable populations are not designed to inflict punishment, creating a traumatizing environment. Society needs to recognize humans' deeply embedded need for natural connections and return to a fostering relationship that protects and fuels our environment. We have the ability to bring nature, connection, and community back into our neighborhoods if we decide to invest in a biophilic future. Biophilic design recognizes that humans have evolved to need daily interaction with nature to be healthy and happy. But it is more than aesthetics that triggers positive well-being. Natural systems at large, flora, fauna, light, movement, space, materials, sounds, smells, all play a part. Nature is essential to mental and physical well-being because of its power as positive stimuli and enrichment, which gives the brain the right amount of diverse stimuli to ground and soothe someone, but not overwhelm their nervous system. This past year, I sought daily interaction with nature, engaging with my local ecosystems, and creating tactile natural experiences within my own interior. This research was fundamental in my understanding of nature's importance for mental and physical health. Crimes and the people who commit them do not exist in a vacuum. They are inextricably linked to our society and our priorities. You cannot separate the glaring injustice of our legal systems when considering those inhabiting these spaces, those in positions of power working in them, and the extended affected community visiting loved ones. If we are building new facilities, I propose that biophilic theory gives us ecotherapeutic applications to create interiors which calm subtly, psychologically, and instinctively. Seeking soothing spaces provides insight into alternatives to our current incarceration mindset, praising punishment. Interiors of prisons consist of their own delicate ecosystems, where inmates battle for dominance, territory, and standing. There are increased anger and stress levels because of their isolation from the world, complete lack of enrichment, extreme neglect, and the glaring issues of our justice system. It is easy to misplace anger and frustration when it builds through environmental conditions and there are no outlets. Providing diverse nature-based stimuli helps to de-escalate by lowering stress, anger, and depression levels. This housing unit design comprises 3 essential elements: the social space, the private room, and the yard. These 3 balance each other and provide the residents with diverse environments. During quarantine, I created a planted community tank in order to study designing for enemies and the potential for violence within a housing unit on a much lower stakes scale. Safety is considered a critical physiological need. In a dangerous environment, it is impossible to design in a way that guarantees a lack of violence. Instead, we look to ways to diffuse and redirect potentially dangerous situations. High-reward areas become the most covetable and common sites for turf battles. Providing varied high-reward social spaces full of diverse enrichment decreases the likelihood of fights. Nature teaches us the importance of no dead ends. Fluid and diverse circulation allows for visibility and escape in common spaces. Private rooms provide areas of personal sanctuary. They support safe facilities and greatly reduce the risk of physical and sexual assault. The prison yard has the most biophilic potential. The Corrections Department understands that physical activity is essential, but the harsh, barren spaces provided do not meet the basic criteria of the biophilic checklist. They highlight that exteriors do not automatically contain the soothing elements of nature. This plan does not erase the physical recreation space, but relocates it inside, allowing for noise and movement of humans without disturbing the native residents inhabiting the outdoor space. For the first time in history, the majority of humans live in cities, and this has created new sources of urban nature pocketed within the confines of our man-made landscapes. Urban ecology is a critical field for the future as cities expand, taking up important habitats and detrimentally fragmenting existing populations. Designing for flora, fauna, fungi, and humans on equal hierarchical footing removes a primary inhabitant of the space, remembering the hundreds of species that cohabitate with us. Providing an outdoor recreational space where humans meet their need for natural connection is also an opportunity to foster our local environment and consider our responsibilities to local ecosystems. These spaces should be welcoming to diverse native flora, fauna, and fungi, while aiming to provide for their basic needs. It takes time for ecosystems to grow, balance, and ripen, but the biophilic therapeutic elements that support human happiness strengthen with the health of the environment. The same way that the interior of this project aims to help residents tend to their own physiological needs, the exteriors focus on using natural elements to sustain native populations. The sound of water calls to all of us because it is an essential element. It supports life and biodiversity and is crucial for welcoming native species and increasing the likelihood of a stopover site that draws in visiting animals. Planting diverse native species, focusing on food and shelter sources, draws in residents and provides them with the means to stay. Once the basic needs are met, animals are more capable of forming healthy, happy relationships with each other as cohabitants. Looking at Rikers Island Prison through the lens of trauma, human dignity, and integrating an isolated community into the outside world, my goal is to use biophilic theory to reimagine prisons as trauma healing, restorative justice centers, focusing on rehabilitation and not punishment. Not only designing for the health and happiness of humans, but also a restoration of natural systems, the revitalization of various lost ecosystems, and the health and happiness of the flora and fauna native to New York.